One thing with ADHD is I'm often chronically 5 to 15 minutes late, or I'm entirely too early. And I walked out of the house and looked at my watch as I was going down the stairs, and I was like, I'm going to be 45 minutes early. And though I have a book, that sounds cold because it is chilly out in Montreal now. So I thought I would take a moment to come back and chat for a little bit about something that's been on my mind today. So I've been thinking, it's fucking hot in here now. Okay. So I've been thinking a lot about sexual expression, and sexual expression would be like your behaviors, your communication, your identity. So how you experience and how you communicate to others around your sexuality. And sometimes those things match, and sometimes they don't. I know I've had years where my experience of my sexuality was not matching up to the way in which I was communicating it to others for various reasons. An example might be for survivorship while I was doing sex work. So I was expressing a certain kind of sexuality at that time for a purpose. And then there have been other times where I've expressed a sexuality, let's say asexuality, that was not actually my sexuality, but for the, like, inclusive, but for the moment, I had a year that I took off. For that year, that was my experience. So thinking about the ways in which you experience your own sexuality, not in relation to others. It's not what I'm talking about. You, with you, for you, whether others are present or not. And then the relational piece is how you communicate your sexuality to others. So behavior, communication, identity. And I played a little game where you can create like 3 circles, or I don't know, haphazard shapes or squares, whatever the fuck you want. You don't need lines at all, but areas in which you write down, like, what are the sexually expressive behaviors that I exhibit? What are ones that I do on purpose? What are ones that maybe people have told me about that I hadn't noticed before? What are the sexual expressions that I use only in certain circumstances? What are the sexual expressions that I use when I know I'm interested in somebody? What are the sexual expressions I use when I'm not interested in somebody, but maybe I am interested in their attention? And then one thing I found really fun was to think about, where do I use sexual expression not for the purpose of sexuality? That one I found, I was like, ooh, this one's a tangled mess. So there's an exercise. If you want to play with that, I would love to hear what comes up for you, because I found it really illuminating and left with way more questions than answers, which I consider a success. So there's a fellow somatic sex educator, Flahian, Quebecois, but currently based in Mexico City, and I will put I'll put its profile name here in the comments when we're done. But during an intensive we had last year, it offered us an exercise where we were sitting with a partner, and we were eye gazing. And the premise was something along the lines of, look at the other person, the person who is going, their turn. Look at the other person and seduce them with only your eyes, nothing else. So in this context, I'm thinking about sexual expression through the eyes. And the person receiving that, and I was receiving first, was supposed to just remain neutral. So I was supposed to receive this it was a woman, receive this woman's flirtations, you might say, with her eyes, from a neutral place, which, let me tell you, is very challenging. It was for me. And I think it was for a considerable amount of time. I think it was more than a minute, maybe even 2 minutes. And for people who don't do eye gazing, that's like an eternity. I enjoy, that's questionable. I utilize eye gazing a lot. There are times in which I enjoy it, but it's become very comfortable for me because I've been very purposeful about wanting to engage with that. So that's different journey, different story. But so I was, just neutrally trying to receive this person's sensuality and sexual expression and desire. And after the time, I remember remarking something to the effect of, like, that was, to myself. I'm not sure if I said this to her or not, but it felt so aggressive to me. And it was just the eyes, right? So I would encourage you to do this in a mirror with yourself. How would you seduce somebody with your eyes in a mirror? Just with yourself, notice. Or, do it in a camera, record yourself and then watch it. That's an interesting one. I've done the mirror, but I haven't done the recording. But now I promise I'll go back and do that. And for me, I found it very aggressive because it was, and I used the word aggressive kind of lightly, like it was wanting, it was pulling, it was sucking, it was demanding, these words, which is not terribly comfortable for me, I gotta say, given the sexual traumas I've been in. To have somebody demand my sexual energy is pretty challenging. So outside of desired context, but and then we switched. So you switch your roles, and I got to offer my sexual expression of desire through my eyes only, and my route is much more of a invitation. Come hither, if you desire. I desire to meet you, should you wish. I wouldn't say pleading. That is not in that direction. An offering, I would say, is perhaps the most accurate. So it made for a really fun conversation because this woman was at least a decade older than me, and we had a wonderful, rich conversation afterwards about the way in which, when we're younger, we might look externally for validation for our sexual expression, and noticing that I had noticed as I aged, I didn't desire that so much. In fact, I really need an enthusiastic hell yes that's really based in somebody else's desire, not because I am willing it of them or wishing it of them or desirous of it. I want to be met halfway across the bridge in our enthusiastic hell yeses. So, and she had noted that she had just kind of recently realized that her flirtations were perhaps, what is the word? There was a weight to them now as an older, distinguished, beautiful woman that they hadn't had, or that she hadn't felt when she was younger. And I thought that was a really beautiful reflection. So, yeah. So, as I said, I will point you towards Han's Instagram because it offers some really beautiful exercises. And I don't think that they're currently offering online stuff, but that if I remember correctly, that comes and goes, so maybe check in. But certainly if you're in Mexico City, do recommend. But circling back to what is your sexual expression, knowing that that is contextual, and how do you invite intentionality into the way in which you deploy or invite engagement with your sexual expression? Yeah, I'd love to know what wonderings come up for you around sexual expression, around behaviors, around communication, and certainly identity. These are, for me, very not complicated, actually very simple, but very complex things, and they're woven together um, in a non-static way. So it's hugely relational, and contextual. And contextual may be in relation to other people, or it might not. It might just be contextual for me, myself, and I. So, um, yeah, feel free to send me all of your sexual expression yums. I'm super into thirst traps, but also your musings, your curiosities, and your dissents. I love those. I really don't mind when people pop into my DMs and they're like, "Arr!" So I just see that as passion, possibly protectiveness, possibly desire. So, yeah, come tell me more about how sexual expression um, flows through you over time. Just pick a single moment. It's going to be different the next one. So, all right. Bye. Love y'all.